everybody. It's a special Thanksgiving edition of your Poem of the Week. We are here at the Jim Alberti Theater, right slap dab in the middle of Peacock Blue Studios. We have the artistic director of Peacock Blue Studios running props for you. Everybody say hi to Stephanie.
Howdy.
Oh yes, we are in Austin, Texas, where we are keeping it weird. Oh, go on down there. Yeah, we're getting weird. Because I think actor Channing Tatum said it best. He said, I am thankful for all of those who are weird because they are always the most creative. Hear, hear. It's time for your Fun Texas Fact. We're losing chairs. Time for your Fun Texas Fact. Texas is the home of the very first Thanksgiving. That's right, it was on April 30th, 1598 in El Paso, Texas. Nearly 25 years before the Pilgrims had theirs at Plymouth Rock, Spanish conquistador Juan de Anante was traveling through the desert with 500 conquistadors looking for gold, but instead found themselves starving in the desert. And when some natives found them and led them to the Rio Grande, they were so grateful that they had a feast of fish. They had bonfires, played games, and celebrated for 10 days to thank them. After the games were over, the natives were properly thanked. They enslaved them. But that is not the Thanksgiving that we celebrate. Pull up a chair. Lost the back of one of my chairs on that. Oh well, show me some love. Hit the love button and it will come back to you in infinity. If you can afford to support me or this broadcast, here's how you can do it. With Venmo, PayPal, or Patreon. You guys up for a story? Say, tell us a story, Chandler. Thanks a lot, Stephanie. Everybody say hi to Stephanie. Type it out on your keyboard. Say, hey, Stephanie. Y'all up for a story? That is not the Thanksgiving that we celebrate. Pumpkin pies, turkey, green bean casserole, small children tracing their fingers onto construction papers in order to turn it into a turkey, dressed as pilgrims and Indians. That's not the Thanksgiving we celebrate. No, this is the Thanksgiving we celebrate. This, right here, right now. This is what we have to be thankful for. It's why we call it Thanksgiving. This is it. There is no official date for the now trending Friendsgiving. For me, it is you. You watching this broadcast. You are my friends. You watching this broadcast are my family. You are here, and for you, I give thanks. Forget all that leftist diatribe. Yes, I have been to Plymouth Rock and protested on Thanksgiving too. And it has taken me a while to embrace and celebrate Thanksgiving. Do you know what language the natives spoke in 1621 when they first laid eyes on the Pilgrims? English. Thank you, Squantum. A name that should be spoken every Thanksgiving, but is not. You see, the Wampanoag had been trading with Europeans for a century by the time the Pilgrims got there. The Pilgrims had never heard a word of Wampanoag in their lives. There were, in fact, more native people living in North America that had been to Europe than Europeans in North America. It's true. Less than 10 years after Columbus's voyage, the first dozen Native Americans, not that they would have called themselves that, from what we now call New England, were off visiting Europe and learning European language. Granted, this was not a sightseeing trip that they chose to make, like the Pilgrims did, and few would return. By the 1600s, native slaves were the chief component of America's gross national product, North and South America, and largely thanks to the Spanish, but that's a different story. In 1605, the English captain John Weymouth returned to Europe with a payload of 20 Indians chained in his cargo, and among them was Squantum, the very Indian that first approached the starving Pilgrims. He had managed to return to New England as part of the cargo of Captain John Smith. Yes, that John Smith, in 1614 on Smith's first voyage to America. However, members of Smith's crew had other ideas. Squantum was again sold into slavery, but freed by friars in Spain because he declared himself Catholic, and then educated, at least in the ways of the European, and brought back as a guide in 1619 and an interpreter. He had actually hung out in London as an English-speaking freed slave. But this is not the Thanksgiving we celebrate. Understand that when the Pilgrims arrived in December of 1620, it's, in case you hadn't noticed, cold in New England. Things were already not going well. Poor piloting had wasted precious time, and it was now late in the year, and the first winter was not very pretty, and the Pilgrims were starving. They spent their first weeks surviving by sending out armed parties and stumbled upon the remains of an Indian village that had been abandoned, largely because of disease that was already running rampant and decimating the native population. They broke into homes and stole stashes of food that had been there. Survival. But that is not the one we celebrate. Even after the Plymouth colony had a good year under its belt, the Pilgrims still were not doing very well, but this time neither were the Wampanoag. They were at a state of war with the Narragansett. The Pilgrims had something the Wampanoag could use. Guns. Squantum and friends showed up saying, "You know, you guys look pretty hungry. Maybe you should eat some of these pumpkins we raised." And they also suggested, maybe you should get over that weird religious aversion to shellfish and eat some of these lobsters. We got plenty of them running around the beaches. And while we're at it, those guns you got, we could use a few of those. The Pequot are really starting to piss us off. Yeah, the first Thanksgiving was indeed an arms deal. But still, this is not the Thanksgiving we celebrate. And so began a series of pacts, alliances, allegiance, and affiliations that always seem to end up with the Europeans on top. Now, we all know this shit. Anyone who's watched the History Channel for more than an hour knows this. But still, I say, Happy Thanksgiving. For that is not the Thanksgiving we celebrate. I like to think of Thanksgiving as, well, just that. An almost pagan ritual where we can celebrate the bounty of this life and give thanks for all we have, and frankly, we do have a lot. My favorite Thanksgiving, the one I do celebrate, took place when I was living in Canada, where they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Okay, they do. Only in a different date and for different reasons. I was living as a street musician in a tourist town in the early 90s, living in a shack in a lumber yard with my wife, Amanda Stark. We were a duo, called ourselves Stark Raving Chandler, paying literally $100 a month Canadian to live in this shack with a wood stove. Things were bleak. I mean, compared to the first winter spent by the Pilgrims, I had it pretty good. But when viewed through the rose-colored Ray-Bans of today's standards, that little wood-burning stove did not work very well, and bad weather in a tourist town meant no money for a big meal, and we were hungry. Now, I know you think of Canada as a socialist country and all, so I could have gotten some kind of assistance, but no, I was a frostback, an undocumented U.S. American worker working below standard wages to entertain the tourist class. In short, no Thanksgiving for Stark Raving Chandler. But my friends, a miracle transpired. The Thanksgiving miracle, the Canadian Postal Service. Because they do not celebrate Thanksgiving, they deliver the mail on the fourth Thursday in November, and my mother timed it perfectly. She was distraught by the fact that I was living with no Thanksgiving, so she mailed me a can of turkey meat, a box of stovetop stuffing, a jar of cranberry sauce, and a can of green beans, cream of mushroom soup, and a can of those French's French fried onions that are only good for one thing, Thanksgiving. Holy moly, that was the best Thanksgiving I ever had. And we do have a lot to be thankful for. And why not be that? Thankful. Happy Thanksgiving, because this is the Thanksgiving we celebrate. And this has been your Poem of the Week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Hang around for your moment of spin. Think of a number between 1 and 3. Miss Stephanie, do we have any takers over there? We have observations from the thin highways of fat America, observations from a 24-hour laundromat, and observations from a roadside diner.
Number 3.
Who says number 3?
Shannon Flattery.
Hi, Shannon. How are you doing? It was great to see you this summer. Are you in New Mexico? Number 3, that would be Observations from the Thin Highways of Fat America. And I need a number between 1 and 135. Got a couple of announcements to make in this too. I will tell you that on December 1 through 5, Paul Benoit and I are going to be playing a bunch of shows in Austin, Albert, Texas, San Marcos, Texas, and Houston, Texas. Do we have a taker?
We do. We have Joanne Tinder, number 11.
Joanne Tinder wants number 11. Well, this is the 11th month, and this is the 11th edition of Season 3. And number 11 says... I suffer from pre-traumatic stress disorder. There you have your moment of spin. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Central Time. And we have been listening to Pete Weiss and the Weistronauts.